You're listening to the Jam Price Show, all about movies, and today my guest is designer Julian R. Wagner. We're going to talk about this incredibly amazing film called September 5th. I just, well, I was blown away by this movie, I have to tell you, and I'll be very surprised if it's not nominated for Best Picture this year, and also for your production design, because it was really incredible. So I can't wait to do a deep dive into creating the newsroom of September 5th in Munich, Germany, for the Olympics, the year that we had the terrorist attack on Israeli Olympians. So it's an amazing story. So welcome to the show, Julian.
Hi, thank you very much. I'm very excited to be here and to talk about the movie.
I'm excited to have you here too. So our audience knows a little bit more of the detail. Why don't you give them a synopsis of the movie of September 5th?
Well, the September 5 is about the tragic event that happened in 1972 in the Olympic Village during the Olympic Games. But we are telling the story from a totally different perspective. So our story is more about the work of the journalists on the ground. This is more a journalistic thriller, and we wanted to show and to tell how the journalists have been working at the time. We are talking about questions like what can be broadcasted and what not. We are talking about the moral dilemma of journalists and also of humans in general, because we are all facing the same problem every day. We all have our mobiles in the pocket, so in any second we can capture something and we can decide if we put it online or not. So this journalistic moral dilemma is a dilemma that we all have. It's about the responsibility we have, and this is what the story is about.
It's it, even though we all know what happened that day, it is a thriller in so many ways. The way it's shot, the way it is edited, the music, the acting, everyone is really superb in this. But the recreation of that studio and what they went through, because this is the first time they were using satellites, I believe, right? They were going
Yeah,
live. Now,
right.
I kind of got, I wasn't sure, were they sharing the satellite with this is ABC that broadcast this, but were they sharing it? CBS came in there and they talking about sharing the satellite. Is that something that was happening back then?
Well, I mean, talking a bit more about the event itself and the circumstances. In 1972, the Olympic Games, this was the first event that has been broadcasted live all around the globe, and that made it so new and unique, and it changed so much because we were all able to watch this on TV, and um, like they are sharing these satellites. So it was the first event when journalists have been able to use satellite as technology, and this is why they could broadcast it all over the globe. And they had like they had their spots. They had a time slot. So every unit had a time slot, and depending on how, I don't know, famous you were and whatever, you got a better slot or not. It's a bit like today, and they wanted to follow the story from the beginning to the end, but at some point they didn't have a time slot, so they had to share it at some point, with another TV station, and then they had to invent what we see in the movie, to use a watermark on the screen to make just to make sure that it's their material they're using. Very interesting. So we learned a lot about journalistic work, and we can really follow the story and follow the characters through this process.
Yeah. So let's talk about let's also, because so the audience knows, maybe many people don't know what a production designer does. So why don't you tell a little bit about what a production designer does, and we'll dive into the production design for September 5.
So, I mean, this script, when I got the script from Tim Fehlbaum, the director, we have been discussing on how to realize the story. And in the very beginning, the script was a bit different. So the approach was to tell the story from multiple perspectives. I wanted to show as well, what happened in the village. We wanted to talk about, to show the police work. And the focus has always been on the journalists and on their work. And in the process of the script writing, Tim and Moritz came to a point when they realized it's all about the journalism. This is the unique perspectives that we want to have. And then Tim came to me and we discussed it, and we realized and decided that this is all about authenticity. It's about, we all felt, I guess we all felt a huge responsibility for the victims, but also, for history, to be very accurate about this. And however, I view my role as a production designer as well in supporting the emotional world of the actors and to support the drama and the narrative. So in the first place, as a designer, you have to find the delicate balance between reality and fiction. And you cannot just go and copy one-to-one everything that you learned during the research. You also have to decide where you take a bit more creative license and to change rooms or architecture, or what can you do to support the emotions. Or the story became a one-room thriller. So as I saw it, at some point, is that the Olympic Village became a gigantic stage where everything happened. And yet we wanted to tell the story from a single room or a single studio set. So designing this small world and still telling the big story, this was the main approach for me as a designer, I'd say.
So let's talk about the TVs, the phones, all of the electronics that are recreated from 1972, over 50 years ago. Talk about that process of getting those and getting them working, because you wanted them to work. So let's talk about that.
Yeah. As I said, authenticity became the main goal for us. And for Tim, it was very important that everything works. He didn't want to have any fake devices or anything. It should all be real from that time, and it should work. And we can talk, later as well about the control room in particular, because this was very specific. But in general, we wanted to have worked. And so first of all, we started to research about the journalistic work. How, what was the workflow? What did they do? What kind of machines did they use? And we had we had a lot of help by Jeffrey Mason, who was there at the time, and the team, and he was providing us with informations and also with images, photographies from the time. And of course, these photographies weren't, precisely showing the sets. It was more about the crew. And we had to do a big puzzle then. And, we had a tiny part of an image showing the control room. And then we found an old catalog from the manufacturer of the devices showing a room which hasn't been necessarily exactly this room. So I always say, like, the research of journalism became an investigative journalism itself, because we had to dig, we had to really go into that research process. And then when we, at some point, we had quite a clear idea about how this all looked like, and we also found the original blueprints of the studio build.
Ah.
Yeah, this was very exciting. And then I guess from that part on, we had enough knowledge to decide where to be accurate and where to take a bit more creative license. And we decided to be very, very precise about every single technical detail, and to take a bit more freedom regarding the space and the architecture, and to make it a bit more interesting, to allow us to maneuver freely, to go from one room to another, and to have always an interesting background, to see as well the technical devices, because in the original studio set, you had no windows. It was totally shut to the outside, and this is what we did as well. There were no windows to the outside, but from one room to another, there were no windows. And there was always a certain demand in the script, in between the lines, saying this technical setup was state of the art, and it was super modern. And I always wanted to show this. And so we created a huge VTR room, which is a huge space with these big VTR machines. And we put it in the center of the studio set, surrounded by glass windows. So you could always see in the background the machinery and the workflow that's been done. So this, I would say, is the biggest creative license that we took. And then when we found out what we need, we had a great team, the prop master, Marco Böhm, and the production buyer, Johannes Faller, that did a great job in investigating all these technical devices and machines. And they were really hunting them down in all basements of TV broadcasters and in museums, private collectors. They went to the Netherlands, they went to Italy, Czech Republic. And we were collecting everything we could get, and we brought it into a studio where we had, I guess, 4 technical experts and 2 prop makers, and they started to refurbish everything and to dismantle it partly, to rewire it, to make it work again. And it was amazing to see how the studio was growing and getting back to life. This was really amazing. I remember at some point we're standing there and we realized basically everything you could find from this time, from that era, was collected in one room in the big studio, and was like, okay, this is at the moment the biggest collection of technical devices from 1972.
It's absolutely amazing. That it truly is. Like, I can't believe that that's what you were able to do. I'm sure you've frozen up a little bit. There we go. I'm sure it was like, detectives, how did you even go about knowing where to go find these things? And you filmed this in Germany, correct?
We filmed this in Germany, in Munich.
Munich,
of course, yeah.
where it actually took place.
Yes,
Sorry.
where it took place, and we had to film it there because we needed to reshoot most of the archival footage. So the archival footage was a great tool for research and was very inspiring, but we had a responsibility regarding the victims, and so we couldn't show any material, from people that got killed or injured in this event. And so we wanted to reshoot the Olympic Village. We had to reshoot the swimming race at the beginning with Mark Spitz, and many other scenes. We used, of course, Jim McKay as an original footage, and some other scenes. Also, the iconic image of the masked man on the balcony has been reshot. So Munich was the place, and as the Olympic Village is under heritage, but the original studio was not. So it was teared down in the past. And we went into a studio and we rebuilt the entire ABC studio set as well from the exterior. So we had the exterior and the interior built.
Did you build that by the Olympic Village, or did you build it in a soundstage?
On a soundstage. We went to a soundstage, and we had two intentions when we built the studio set. The first was we wanted to create a studio set that was a continuous set. So usually you would go on a soundstage and you would build many mini sets because it's much easier to work in. You can film and shoot in one set and you can still work on another. But we wanted to create a world like a time machine where you would enter the studio and you would never see behind a curtain or behind a wall. And we wanted to move freely because Tim and Marcus, the DP, Marcus Förderer, they wanted to work like a documentary team, following the story and following the characters, and basically like the journalists at that time worked, because they wanted to follow the story from the beginning to the end, and they wanted to cover everything. And they didn't have a second to think about what they were doing. They were just following the story and they did their work. And Tim and Marcus wanted to work the same way. And doing this meant we needed to create a 360-degree space, ceilings, floors, everything. We wanted to move freely from one room to another. So all the lights have been built in the set already. And this was an enormous task and needed a lot of collaboration from all crafts, because we didn't want to reset. We wanted to do long shots. And the second intention was regarding the actors, that we wanted to create a set where the actors would dive in and they would forget about the world of 2022. It was when we shot it. So this is again like a time machine for them too. And they could touch whatever they wanted to touch. It was for real. There was no drawer in a desk that hasn't been dressed. Every memo that you can see that was stick on, there were detailed writings that hadn't been fake. There was no hi Bob or whatever you might fake on such a memo. It was just very accurate. And that's how we did it.
It's amazing. And I had to believe by doing that is what enhanced the performances in this film, because they all, you've got Peter Sarsgaard, John Magaro, really wonderful in this, Ben Chaplin, and an actress I have not seen, Leonie Benesch. Is that her name? How do you say her name?
Leonie Benesch.
She was wonderful. It was also interesting how the two women in the film were so instrumental, how they really needed those women. And I'm wondering if they were based on real people. I'm sure they were.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah. It was interesting, how the women were coming up with the ideas and how to go ahead and do it. And I thought, yes.
Yeah. It's we have these great characters in the story, and they are based on true people. Still, you can see in mine the cast is very male, but this is how it has been in 1972 in such a job. And I must say, for me as a designer, when I go into a set and I see such a wonderful, talented group of actors, this ensemble led by Tim in an incredible way, how they work together and how they were dedicated to everything they did. It was just mind-blowing to witness this from the outside, so to say, because on the set I'm basically just, watching.
Yeah, it comes through. It really comes through. All of that detail, that's pretty amazing. I don't think we as the audience when we're watching a film realize how much we're watching production, the production design, how much. I mean, some films you do see it and you notice it, but how those little finite details make such a huge difference. Subconsciously, I think, as an audience, when we're watching it, not being aware of what those details bring to the production, bring to the film. But for the actors, that has to add so much to the performances. See, playing more of a real world than play acting. And not that anybody play acts, but you know what I'm saying. That adds to performance, I would think, when it's especially something that's an historic event that many people are very aware of and should be more aware of if they're not. Maybe this is a good time for this film to come out for us to be more aware of. History doesn't change too much in a way. It's when I was watching, it was like, how much have we really progressed in those 52 years?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I would, what I would wish the audience, takes from this movie is to understand how the journalist work has been done back then and also today, because it's still the same approach, and to learn about these questions of moral dilemma, and so it's about understanding history, but also about thinking about yourself, how you deal with these questions about with your responsibility, because as I said in the beginning, it's very tempting to just cover things, capture it, and sending it out, but we have a huge responsibility today with all these things, and especially today with all the fake news and the way it's used on a political stage. This is huge. This is something we have to think about, and everyone has to think about their own behavior.
I totally couldn't agree with you more. One of the things that I found interesting, how the Germans felt about this here. They were having the Olympics in Munich. How many years after the war? Quite a few, 22 or something, a little more. And then to have this happen on their turf again, that was really very interesting to see that reaction. Now, I'm assuming everything in this is based on truth. So is that, the way they responded and how they felt, particularly the German interpreter, how she felt at the end. I thought that was very moving. Very moving.
Yeah, I just got the second half of your question because we had a little interference here, but I think I got the idea behind it. It was for all of us, for all of us Germans, it was a big tragedy, of course, because of the event itself, but also, we wanted to show a new Germany, and we wanted to represent us as an open society. We wanted to invite the world to us after all these years. That we hoped we could come over now, and it was supposed to be an event of joy and love and all of that, and then again something like this happened, and we haven't been prepared. And honestly, I knew about that event, but I only learned through the script, and doing this movie, I learned so much more. I learned, about all the mistakes we have done, and why we have done it, and how unprepared we were, because we were so keen about not being. We didn't want to show a military presence again, and we were so afraid of having, of doing this again, that we underestimated, any kind of risks and threats. And this was a tragedy in itself. And I think we all felt this very much. We felt, We felt really bad these days back then.
I worked for two Olympics. I worked for the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta, Georgia. And we had the bombing that took place in Atlanta. And that really changed how security was after that event. And then I went and worked on the 2002 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City. So, having worked for two, I understand the need for diligence as far as protecting the people that are there and the athletes. So, yeah, but this movie it really is so, it's really, really, really incredibly well done. Uh, Acting is superb. The set design, obviously, the production design. And I urge people really to go see September 5th. It's going to be opening limited release on December 13th, and then it will go on wide release January 17th for a Martin Luther King weekend. So when it comes out, I highly recommend. It's an interesting piece of history. It changed the way that news is broadcast. This was the defining moment that things really changed in our broadcast world. And it's just a well done movie and something that piece of history that we all should be aware of. So, Julian, thank you so much. I look forward to hearing your name when the Oscars are, the nominations are made. And I wish you much success with the film and appreciate you being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was nice talking to you.
Pleasure. To all my loyal listeners, if you would like to financially support the Jan Price Show, now you can give a tax-free donation. Go to creativevisions.org. That's creativevisions.org, and find the Jan Price Show in the podcast section where you can make a tax-free donation. Thank you in advance for your support. Thank you so much.